Now, without further ado, I would like to invite Kashif Zafar, our keynote speaker for today. Kashif is the head of the Global Markets Division for Americas at Credit Agricole CIB. He joined the firm in 2018, and his responsibilities include leading the firm's sales, trading, securitization, and capital markets businesses. Kashif serves on the Global Markets Division's Executive Committee and the CACIB Americas Management Committee. Kashif has more than 30 years of experience in global financial markets. Prior to joining the firm, he spent over a decade in Barclays in New York and London, during this time, he served as co-head of global sales and co-head of global macro products. Kashif has also worked at the US JP Morgan and at Credit Suisse, where he began his career in investment banking coverage. Kashif graduated from Middlebury College and holds an MBA from the Wharton School of Business. He is a member of the Board of Trustees at Middlebury College, at the American Pakistan Foundation, and at International House, New York. Welcome, Kashif.
Thank you very much, Maha, for the introduction. I want to kick things off with a thank you and an apology. Thank you to all of you for joining us here today. And despite the beautiful outside, the weather outside, you could have been on a golf course, you could have been at Central Park. We can actually see Central Park from here. So I'm grateful that all of you joined us, and it's a true testament to your commitment to the American Pakistan Foundation, and hopefully to the future, and also to the future of our community as we build APF together. Apology, because I think many of you showed up here because you wanted to hear Imran Shah, my fellow APF. No, okay. We never made that public. Okay, I was the backup artist, so I wanted to just apologize in case somebody traveled from far away to listen to Imran Shah, who we had asked to do this, and he unfortunately had to be for a very important commitment outside. But I guess since we never made that public, I will take the credit as the keynote. So anyway, I thought what I'll do is the importance of the young people in this room. And many times you see the bios of the. Can we take this bio off, please? It's very embarrassing. Can I just do that? My mom would be very happy if you kept this up the whole time.
Can you put the QR code up?
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's something where on a Friday afternoon, what can I share with the young folks in the room that I think many of the more seasoned folks in the room probably know, and many of them have their own stories about their paths and their careers and their lives. And I thought, since it is Friday afternoon, I will maybe share a few stories that would anchor, that have anchored for me my belief in what it takes. Everybody has their own definition of success, but why I think somebody would call me successful, and that my own definition of success. So where it starts for me is, actually, can I ask how many people in this room were born in the US? All right, maybe a quarter to a third of the crowd. So when people ask me, what is my view on life, I always tell people I'm one of the luckiest people born in the history of humanity. And people think I'm being facetious, I'm joking, but I'm actually dead serious. And for those of you who were born in this country, you're a lot luckier than I am, because I was born in Pakistan. I was born to what I would describe as an upper middle class family, where my parents focused on education, sacrificed to send me, my brother and sister to some of the best private schools. I went to a school in Lahore called St. Anthony's. My passion in life was cricket, and I thought that I had a shot at being potentially a movie star as well, even though I was not doing well in drama school or drama classes or the dramas that they did. I would never get a part, but I kept thinking, you hear all these things about people aspiring and being rejected and becoming waiters and then becoming Bollywood or Hollywood stars. So that didn't really work out too well for me. And I was very worried about being pushed by my parents to be academically competitive. And I was basically in a class of 100 people, probably ranked 25th or 27th when you aggregate the 7 subjects of your class at that point. So I may be dating myself, but those of you who grew up in Pakistan will also know that they put everybody's scores for every exam up on the board, so you knew exactly where you stood. And if you failed a class, then basically 100 people knew, and they would go tell everybody else that you had failed the class. So I was sort of, somewhere in the middle of the pack overall with all the subjects. So time comes in 8th grade to decide if you want to go to O levels, which is the British O level system, or the Pakistani system, which is the you go to there, and then you can go to medical school, engineering school. It's not the end of life, but you have a clear differentiation. The top students go to O levels, and then potentially on to A levels, and the rest of the kids go to what was, I think, called the metric system, or the high school system back then. So I figured if there was 25 people going to the O-level section, I could be somewhere close to the top of the class, and the pressure from my parents to excel in academics would go down. So you had to opt in, and you had to let your parents know that you wanted to take the exam, and you had to take an exam. So I summarily decided not to take the exam and focus on my cricket game. And then, by the way, I have faced Imran Khan in an actual match for a charity, but I did finally find myself in the halls of cricket fame facing Imran Khan, but that's a story for another time. So the headmaster at the school, his name is Father Donnelly. He was an Episcopalian Australian father. There were these fathers, 5 or 7 of them, who would come from Australia to St. Anthony's in the middle of Lahore, and they would do these rotations of 6, 8, 10 years, and then they would go back. So a whole pack of them would come. And the strange thing about Father Donnelly was he was very young. For principal should have been in the 50s or 60s. He was like in his early 40s. And what we found out when I joined the school was that actually they had come in. There was another father, Father Burns, who was the principal or the headmaster, and he was the deputy headmaster, being groomed one day down the road, 10 years down the road, to be the headmaster. And Father Burns had decided to create some massive upheaval in the organization, and basically the faculty, the staff, everybody revolted, the parents. So the message went back to Australia. This is not really working out. So Father Donnelly was an accidental headmaster of St. Anthony's in 1981 to 85 when I was there. He sends a letter home to my parents saying to my dad, "Can you please come see me with Kashif?" So I was the ultimate mama's boy. I was not mischievous. Some of you may know me and think that I will pull a prank every now and then here, but I was totally, I swear, a mama's boy back in the early 80s. So this Father Donnelly calls my dad in, and he says, "Listen, I've done this analysis," and it's a piece of paper. This is before there were spreadsheets. This is before there was Excel, before there were computers being used. It's 1981, 82, 83, that time frame. And he has this piece of paper, which is like a 8 by 11 very long paper. It has all the 100 people's name on it, the students, and it has all of their aggregate scores. And then he's done math plus science, and he has aggregated the totals just for math and science. And just so happens, I was like number 3 or number 5 in math and science. So he's arguing with my dad that you should let your son sit for this exam so that he can be in O levels. And he's the only person who's not in the top 25 who is in math and science who's not applying for this coveted spot in O levels, because 50, 60 other people have applied. And I'm sitting over there going like, this is the end of my cricketing career, and now I'm going to be bottom of the class in this O levels thing. And I really was a bit of a lazy bum at that point. So I decided, hopefully we can get out of it. And my father says to this gentleman, because the whole sheet used to go home and everybody knew, and my dad was pretty good at math, that I actually know that my son is very good in math and science. But if he does these O levels, then he's going to want to do A levels, and then he's going to want to go to the UK or the US for college. But I don't have the means. I'm a retired, honest military officer, and he did not do some of the extracurricular activities that many of the other folks did to be able to afford that. So his view was, I don't want to raise my son's expectations that in case he does very well, he's going to want to go to college, and I just don't have the means. We don't have the means to do that. So Father Donnelly, again, the accidental headmaster of St. Anthony's in 1983, explains to my father that if your son does well, then he can take these SATs and other things, and he can get a scholarship to go to the US. So here I am, beautiful day. I can see the trees outside. I see my future in cricket crumbling right in front of my eyes, and doing this insanely tough competitive O levels and A levels. But at that point, sort of the decision was made because I had to do what my parents wanted me to do. So I ended up going to O levels. Then I ended up going to A levels for HSN. So when people ask me, what makes you successful, I somewhat laugh about it. If it wasn't for Father Donnelly, who was the accidental headmaster of St. Anthony's in 1981 to 1985, I clearly would not be sitting here. I clearly would not even come to the US, would have never had a job in banking, wouldn't have had all these fancy titles that Maha just went through. So I think my first message to everybody is realize and recognize that what you have in life already, and the fact that you are on 52nd and 6th Avenue in New York City, the greatest city in the world, you are pretty lucky, and you need to be grateful for what you have in life. That's my number one lesson is we get too caught up in looking at people and what others have in terms of success and chase that and want these titles and want that. The second thing I would say is know what you're good at. There's a school of thought that says you should double down on your strengths, and there's a school of thought that says you should work on your weaknesses. My stated weakness in my first year analyst review in 1992 when I joined Credit Suisse was you talk too much. If you ask any of my fellow board members, particularly those on the executive committee, or you simply call up my wife, she will tell you I talk too much. So clearly in 35 years, nothing has really changed, but somewhat I have these job titles to at least highlight that I've been figured out a way to be successful. I think you have to manage your areas of development and try to be a better listener, which I every day try to do, but then these guys gave me a half an hour to talk. So I guess I get to do that. But at the same time, I joined banking 2 years. I worked 100 hours a week, got home at 2 o'clock in the morning every day, like probably many people in this room. And after 2 years, I realized that I was really, really bad at accounting. If you want to be an M&A banker, you want to be investment banking, you have to be really, really good at accounting. Those of you who are excel at accounting would be sitting there going like, that's pretty easy. To me, it was like Sanskrit. I could not understand accounting. I'm really good with numbers. I'm really good with math. I'm really good with finance. I don't understand accounting, and I gave that up. So I had to switch. So after 2 years of doing investment banking, I basically went to the bottom of the barrel on the market side and went to JP Morgan to start in derivatives, which I felt was a technical thing for me. So I gave up sort of 2 years of seniority, so to speak, to have another shot at a different business. And then things really, really worked out, and I ended up doing very well in that business. So it's okay to take a year or 2 years of a step back to make sure that you're in an area where you're strong rather than just kind of trying to figure out to hang on to the roles you have or to whatever it is that you put your mind to in terms of doing. I'm also very poor at learning languages. I work for a French bank. They said, you know, you're a senior executive. We will pay Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 2 hours. Private tutor will come in. We'll spend thousands of dollars and we'll get you trained up. Because, you know, you go to Paris, you should be able to speak beyond the basic, you know, bonjour and bonsoir. And my message to them was, please don't waste your money. I work for the shareholders. It's a very negative return on shareholder investment because I simply don't have the brain to learn languages. And I could go on and on and on, and people talk about their strengths. I can talk on and on and on about my areas of development. And then thankfully, now we're living in a world where hopefully if I speak in English and you have something in your ear, you can understand what I'm saying in French. And if you speak something, we'll get there. Soon enough, we'll get there. Maybe Elon Musk will invent a chip where he can put it in my brain and I'm speaking in English and whatever's coming out of my mouth is coming out in French. So luckily, that's not been a massive handicap for me. So I'm doing very well in this career at JP Morgan. My parents are on my rear end. Education, education, education. You have to go to business school. And I'm at JP Morgan. I have a good career, but I have to go to business school because my dad is like, you cannot have a BA pass. We used to call it in Pakistan, BA pass, bacha. And also in economics. I'm not a doctor like Nasser is. I'm not an engineer like some other people in this room. I'm just a BA pass economics guy. So my parents are really worried. And so I applied to Harvard Business School. Not once, not twice. I'm one of the most rejected people in the history of Harvard Business School. I tried 3 times. I'm pretty persistent. I'm a competitive guy. And probably the only interview I have ever blown in my career, I'm pretty good at interviewing, was at Harvard Business School. The 3rd time around, they gave me an interview and it goes spectacularly well. And right at the end, and this teaches you a lesson in not trying to be, that hubris can really work against you. And the guy says, do you have any questions for me? And for those of you who know anything about business school or Harvard Business School, there's something called the case study method. And I was doing a lot of derivatives and options and everything else. And kind of, I had 3 or 4 questions. And I typically do this thing. I'm not going to think about what I'm going to say. I'm just going to go with whichever one I picked from my mind. And I obviously back then did not know that I probably suffered from heavy ADHD. So I go with, how do you teach options theory in case study method? Which is singularly the dumbest question you can ask somebody, because the guy says, no, we don't teach that. We teach that in a different class. And so then he's just sitting there like, this guy wants to be at Harvard Business School? What an idiot. So that was the end of my Harvard Business School dream. As Maha mentioned, she didn't mention that I have a fake MBA. I have a fake MBA from Wharton. I did the executive MBA program. So for those of you, it's great. Your company pays for it and you get the same degree as everybody else. So my parents are very happy that I have now from Wharton an MBA. And then again, going back to the point about luck, had I gone in 1998 into business school, and again, most of you are too young, but the others will remember that in 2000, there was a technology NASDAQ crash, I believe in May of 2001. So had I gone to business school, I would have given up my 4, 5, 6 years of seniority in the derivatives business at JP Morgan and would have started as a first-year analyst or first-year associate at probably Credit Suisse in the most coveted team at that time, which was technology. So I would have joined in June of 2000 in the technology investment banking department as a first-year associate, and I probably would have been fired a year or 2 years later. Instead, in February of 2001, because I was in the derivatives business, and if you know anything about banking, rising tide lifts all boats, and the derivatives business really took off. And at the age of 31, I was a managing director, a 3-time reject of Harvard Business School with a fake MBA from Wharton. I shouldn't say fake. Other people may have executive MBAs in the room as well. So I've got this situation going on. And then suddenly I find myself with that I got lucky. The best thing that arguably happened to me was I didn't get into Harvard Business School, because rather than being a first-year associate, second-year associate who's getting fired, I'm now a managing director. And so that's worked out well. But just in case I felt that I wasn't lucky enough, I get an email from a guy who says, hey, listen, I'm in the M&A tech department. Can I come see you? He is a third-year or second-year associate. He was Harvard Business School class of 2000. He applied the same year that I did. He had the same background as I did. He grew up in Lahore. He's applied. He's gotten in, and I have not gotten in. And he graduated, and he went into what would have been my dream job, which was tech M&A at First Boston, at Credit Suisse. And he asked me, and he says, listen, I'm a second-year associate. I work my ass off. We've had 3 RIFs, reductions in force, of people being fired. Our team started as 150 people, went to 100 people, I made the cut. Went to 50 people, I made the cut. Now they're telling me it's going to go to 25 people, and I have 3 months to find a job. Do you have like a junior level job in your derivatives team? You're a big, bloody managing director. Can you hire me into your team? And he's probably arguably one of the smartest people around who got into Harvard Business School. So if there is a lesson again, and that I thought was, every time I tell my mom this story, my mom tells me that that's God's way of telling me that I'm very, very lucky, which it probably is. So that's, again, comparing myself and saying that, I worked really hard. I don't believe in this whole idea that you work really hard, you pay your dues, and then you deserve success. I think you work really hard, you do the best you can, and have the lowest expectations from other people of delivering for you, but making sure you hold on to your job. In my 33 years now in this banking business, and Wall Street is really, really aggressive place, all stretch of imaginations, and a trading floor, which is where I worked for 31 years, is, kind of would be described as a sort of an animal kingdom of people killing each other and doing all of this. I have never once in 33 years asked for a promotion. We have these programs say, be ambitious, go ask for what is your thing. And I do think that it is something which is very simple in terms of my framework for decision making around that. And that is that I very firmly believe that if I deserve to get promoted, and I work in an environment and I work in a company where I should get promoted, then somebody's going to tap me on the shoulder and say, you know what, we should promote you. If I'm going to get promoted because I'm creating a lot of noise to get promoted, because I'm going to threaten to leave this organization if I don't get promoted, most likely I'm probably not ready for the job and somebody's going to put me in the job because they don't want to lose me because I am a valuable asset, but they end up making the wrong decision for the shareholders of the firm and probably arguably for myself as well. So I come from a school of thought that says you do your work, but the thing that I am really, really good at, I find the right bosses to work for. If you don't work for the right people, you will get taken advantage of. And I have at times been, when I was younger, worked for people where I spent the whole weekend doing something and they went in on Monday morning, having gone to play golf or swimming or whatever over the weekend. People who were one layer of management above me took credit for my work. So make sure you work for people who will nurture you, who will help you get to a better spot in your career and have a vested interest in doing that. So you go from luck to doubling down on your strengths to failure. And then I guess the last couple of things I would highlight is taking care of yourself. When you're 25 years old, you can pull all-nighters and you can get through and still make sense. As you get older, and I think we're finding out, and again, I get pretty much once a week a reminder from my wife about my sleeping habits and why 5 hours of sleep is very, very bad for you. But I have believed very firmly in the school of thought, which is an article written by Tony Schwartz, who, by the way, also is famously known for having been the author of Donald Trump's biography, The Art of the Deal. But he has a whole leadership side to it. He promised me that he actually took that job because he had no money, and he wrote the book, and it's one of the things that he's not very proud of. So Tony Schwartz wrote this article called Making of a Corporate Athlete, and he talks about 4 layers of energy. Physical, which is the core fundamental basic of it. So taking care of yourself, eating right, sleeping, exercising. Mental energy, emotional energy, and spiritual energy. And the way I would very quickly connect those is if you basically exhaust yourself, at some point you're going to make a mental mistake, which is going to lead you to getting emotionally distraught, which is eventually going to potentially make you do something that is immoral or unethical from a spiritual perspective. So those layers of management, and you can Google it. I think it's called, as I said, Making of a Corporate Athlete. It's a great article in terms of taking care of yourself, and then the rest of it will take care of, you can take care of things best if you take care of yourself and invest in yourself. Again, I don't follow it as well. I'm preaching it, but I probably should practice it a lot better. Decision-making in your life and in your work. I follow the advice of Bob Rubin, who was a former head of Goldman Sachs and a former Treasury Secretary and co-chairman of Citibank. He wrote a book. When I read it back in the 90s, it was called In an Uncertain World. Today, if you want to buy it, it's called The Yellow Pad. And he had a very, very simple theory about how people mess themselves up when they go through life trying to judge whether the decisions they have made were the smart ones or the foolish ones. And he said most people, when given a choice to go A or B, will do the analysis and it'll say, you know what, 75% A is a better route, 25% B is the better route. So what will you do? Of course, in an uncertain world, you take A because there's a 75% probability. He said what was wrong in how psychologically people thought about things after they had made the decision and after the outcome was obvious was that when in the 25% scenario, because we live in an uncertain world, B had a better outcome in reality. B was the path you should have chosen. You have to ask yourself, did you make a mistake or did you make the right decision? And he said, the way people thoroughly confuse themselves is they think I made the wrong decision because I didn't make the decision that was the better path to success. And that is wrong because if you do that, then you're judging your decisions on the basis of outcomes that are uncertain, as opposed to going back and saying, did I do the analysis thoroughly? Now, if you calculated the probabilities of the expected outcomes wrong, then you're a fool. It really was 90-10. You should have gone B, but you thought it was 60-40. But if you go through and you say every single thing that I knew at the time that I knew making a decision, would I make that decision again? Then you've done it right. I spend a lot of time thinking about the framework of how I make decisions. Once I make them, sometimes I do make mistakes, but I make mistakes because the framework that I use, the inputs that went into it, either I didn't do enough of a homework to gather enough information that was available, or I calculated the probabilities of the expected outcomes wrong. So I don't really beat myself up about did I go this way or did I go this way. I have a very strong conviction that I have a very good framework for decision making, and I don't judge outcomes. I have been fired from jobs. I have been very lucky and gotten double, triple promotion suddenly because a whole bunch of things happen in an organization. So I really look at this in a way that it's a very, very important thing to be confident in your decision making and knowing how you do that. And the last thing I will leave you guys with is something from a Harvard, speaking about Harvard Business School again, Harvard Business School professor Clay Christensen, who was a very devout Christian as well. He passed away, I think, about 10, 12 years ago. He wrote what I think is one of the best articles that you can ever read. And I won't go into the full detail, but it's called How Will You Measure Your Life? So I look at everything that I do with the simple lens of if I'm 85, I'm 90, I'm 95 years old, and it's curtains at that point. How will I measure my life? And so he asked that question. And again, he's a Harvard Business School professor, and he's dealing with people who supposedly, whose job is to make money for their shareholders. And a couple of the things that came out of that was that do jobs where you find meaning, not money. Robin, who's here with us today, when she came out of school, could have gone into any corporation or law firm or business and made probably 5, 10 times more money than a diplomat gets paid. I don't know what exactly you got paid, but I'm sure very little, right? But Robin's life has had meaning because she's one of the leading diplomats that we have in this country who's had a great impact. And I want to congratulate her on an incredible career, but also thank her for having done so much in terms of foreign policy vis-a-vis Pakistan as well. Another one, invest in relationships. So I am one of the greediest people I know. Okay, I will admit it. I am one of the greediest people I know. I'm really, 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 really greedy. I want something out of every relationship. The difference between me and the fool is that I am very, very long-term greedy. And if you're long-term greedy, you don't know what relationships will work out and what relationships will be helpful to you 10 years, 20 years, 30 years later. So if you try to do that analysis of saying, okay, in this group of 100 people, which 3 people should I invest all my time between now and tomorrow at 4 o'clock? Good luck. Because you just don't know if that young lady sitting in the back is going to be the senior partner running this law firm in 25 years' time, because you just simply don't know enough about everybody and what is going to happen in their career. So invest in everybody. Don't try to pick and choose winners early on in your life. And I worked at JP Morgan in the old days when I got rejected 3 times from Harvard Business School. And people who I worked with today are CEOs, CIOs, CFOs of companies, and some of my clients. When they were there, some of them I was more senior to. I didn't kind of do the, I'm your boss and you do this for me and you go get coffee for me and everything else. I treated them with respect. And so to me, that basic fundamental core of, and I don't think most people would describe me as a humble person in how I conduct myself probably, but how I feel is very much that you have to respect the junior most people and the interns. When we hire interns or analysts, I interview every single person. Why? Because I want to make sure they understand the values of the organization that I am in and what is it that we are willing to do to invest in them. So what I say to them, and if you, is that my time is over? What I say to them is, we are hiring you not because we think you're going to be a great intern or you're going to be a great analyst. We're hiring you because we think you will one day be a great, terrific managing director of the bank. And if anybody who works for me, and so I've been at my current job for 7 years, so people have gotten the joke. But if you hire a junior person and 2 or 3 years down the road, they are not working for you, there's 4 reasons for them for that. And all of them are the manager's fault. You hired somebody who was not capable. You went, you interviewed, you were in a hurry. There was some deal going on. You hired this person. They come in 3 or 6 months. Your team is unhappy with them. You have to fire them. Whose mistake is that? It was your call to set up the process to interview the right person. You hired a dud, and now everybody else has to pay for it. Your fault. Number 2, you hired somebody who was very capable. You didn't train them. You didn't invest the time because you were too busy making money and sticking your nose in the wrong places to make sure that your bosses knew you were doing a great job, and the person doesn't learn enough and they don't work out and you have to fire them. Number three, you hired a very capable person, you trained them really well. You were intellectually really close to them. They understood how to do this, how to do this, how to do that. But you never built a human connection with them. You never built an emotional relationship with them. And some charming guy came around like me and said, you know what, if you come and work in my bank or my company, I will be your mentor. I will take care of you, and I will help you get to the partnership or the whatever thing you want to do in your career. And that person leaves. Whose fault is that? That's your fault. You hired a capable person. You trained them really well. You were intellectually close to them. You were never close to them at a human level. And this is one of the lessons that I've learned is no matter how competent you are, no matter how good you are in that job, if you want that promotion, you have to be likable. Unless your boss is the devil themselves. People give management jobs to those people who they think have the potential to be leaders. And there's a big difference between being a leader and being a manager. And my definition of that is a manager can be appointed, a leader cannot be appointed. When somebody says, I'm a leader of this team, I'm like, this person doesn't know the difference between management and leadership. This person is a manager of this team. The way you become a leader is the people who are on the team look at you and say, you know what, you are our leader. So you earn leadership, the right to be or called a leader. You don't call yourself a leader. In terms of the one of the last messages from Clay Christensen that I love is that be proactive and not reactive. So while you do your job and you don't ask for a promotion, look for opportunities in which in your community, in your companies, you can contribute in a positive manner. And I would argue that most of the promotions that I got, I did not just get because I was running a big business or I was doing really well. It was actually because I was bored with my job. And I decided, you know what, I will take over with another partner, the Cultural Awareness Network, the Diversity Network at Barclays in 2011. 2012, we pay a £250 million fine for the LIBOR scandal. 2014, we pay a $2 billion fine for the FX scandal. I was never once investigated or interviewed by any lawyers or compliance folks in the room. I was squeaky clean. Thank you to my dad for instilling that integrity does matter in the long run. But when it came down to what was the good news coming out of Barclays in 2014 or 15, the Barclays Diversity Network ended up winning the best diversity network of any organization. It was because a whole bunch of us came together and decided that we were going to invest and build a recruiting and a mentorship track for the folks in the organization. And that was the only good news that had come out of Barclays in 2014. So that propelled, I think, my career more than anything that I did technically or in my day job. At least that's my belief. But I was lucky as well. I was at the right time, at the right place at the right time. So the last thing I would leave you with, as a community, we are struggling in this country. And you have to be absolutely checked out to not realize that we should have done a lot better. People like myself have spent a lot of time, have some responsibility to bear, have a lot of responsibility to bear for not having done a better job. But at the same time, I go back to the quote that we had on the screen when we got 50 people together at Barclays to say we are really, really bad at diversity recruiting and diversity numbers. We should do a better job without lowering the bar. And the quote that one of my colleagues had pulled out was my favorite quote in the English language. It's a quote from Margaret Mead, who's a US anthropologist, which goes something along the lines of, never doubt the ability of a small group of thoughtful and committed citizens to change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has. So if over the next 2 days we come together, there's a lot of people here, not a few people, quite a few people. If we work together, we come together, we can change a lot, but it's up to all of us individually to contribute to that. So apologies if I've gone way over, but I love to talk. And thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kashif, for such an inspirational talk and also for some really great lessons for building your own paths to success and exceeding in your careers.